Thank you, Michelle, for the kind introduction, and thank you to Chatham House for convening us for what I think is a timely debate. In my humble opinion, it is not too early to start thinking about EU priorities in the coming period, EU policy, its neighborhood engagement, and I don't think it's too early to start thinking also about EU engagement in the post-COVID world, post-COVID-19 world. You're right, Michelle, in highlighting and emphasizing the critical role that the EU has played as being the largest international donor, including in a lot of conflict zones. And I would say conflict zones has to be now seen much more broadly than just the countries where civil wars have been ongoing, whether it's Syria, Libya, or Yemen. I think the notion of conflict in the future, or potential conflict, or areas where there are tensions that could boil over into conflict, is going to be much more expansive given everything we've seen underway. I think the question one should ask is, can the EU, even in that minimalist role, that self-imposed powerlessness of the last few years, can it continue to do that and reap the necessary rewards? What would be required to, in fact, maintain that very role in the future, given everything that has happened in 2020 and 2021? And in this regard, and again, being very brief, I have struggled with this very question as far as whether the EU is prepared, whether the EU will be, in fact, engaged, would be at a level of ambition and a level of strategic support that will be required. Look around you in a lot of the conflict countries in the region. I think the COVID-19 public health crisis has taken a much bigger toll than any official statistics suggest. I think the economic ravages from COVID-19 will also be much more significant and catastrophic for the conflict countries in particular than we suspected or expected initially. And I think overall, these very difficult economic conditions will affect many other countries within the neighborhood of the EU. And so the question one has to ask is the following. Given the growing budget constraints that not only the conflict countries face, the neighborhood countries face, but especially the EU countries increasingly face as they focus internally on what they need to do to protect their economies and societies. Will these budget constraints and these massive debts that they have run up in order to contain the impact of COVID, will these stand in the way in 2021 and 2022, in the way of the EU continuing to be not just the biggest and largest donor to conflict countries, but arguably also the most effective player when it comes to capacity building, technical assistance, and a host of other needs that will emerge, needs that are already there, but in my humble opinion will become even much more magnified and amplified over the next 12 to 24 months. I pose this question and I am skeptical. I think the level of political will that's going to be required, the coordination within the EU and amongst member states, the magnitude of the issues that are likely to emerge in the conflict countries, and with them, the possibilities for problems to be exported abroad, is going to require a complete overhaul, at least in the level of ambition, the scale at which the EU is going to be asked to play. I don't think the Biden administration is going to make life easier for the EU as far as what's expected of Europe in terms of its engagement, its support, and its assistance. The view in Washington remains that Europe has to look after its problems, has to look after its neighborhood. I think the discussions underway in Europe that are targeting thinking about economic recovery, the post-COVID world, have to encompass the neighborhood, have to encompass the conflict areas in a much more strategic, proactive, and a way that's also protective of EU security needs and the like. That is the question that I'm afraid we're going to be looking at over the coming period, the next 12 to 24 months. I think it's up to Europe in many ways to define the parameters of its engagement, the scale, the level of ambition, based on what we see in the conflict countries and within the neighborhood at large, at least in the Middle East. Problems will be bigger. They'll be more complicated. Resources will be scarcer, and competition within countries and amongst countries for economic security, for food security, for protecting livelihoods is going to place much more demands and heavy burden on Europe in the coming period. I will stop here and look forward to a discussion.